Welcome back to Dieu Han RV. We hope you're doing well, wherever you are in the world. Today, we continue a story wrapped in silence, tension, and unspoken fears. Dieu Han has returned to a home that feels safe. But peace never lasts forever. Something stirs in the shadows. A phone call was made. A truth is on its way. Let's take a deep breath and continue this journey. Mr. Chin returned home just like any other day, wearing the same quiet expression. The heavy metal gate creaked as he opened it, but there was no urgency in his steps. He set down his bag, took off his sandals, and reached for the watering can. The garden, green and calm, welcomed him like nothing had changed. But beneath that calm, his eyes told a different story, a man who knew too much and spoke too little. He bent down to check the soil near his vegetables. With precise movements, he pulled out a few weeds, gently adjusted the bamboo stakes, and continued watering. The air was peaceful, with birds chirping and distant sounds of children playing, but his mind wasn't in the garden. It was elsewhere, on what he had done, on the call he made. And yet, his hands never trembled. Inside the house, the phone was silent. Mr. Chin placed the watering can back in its corner and closed the gate slowly. He looked around, as if memorizing the stillness of his world. But the calm didn't last. A knock on the gate startled the birds perched nearby. He walked over, still and hurried, and peeked out to see a man in uniform. It was a local police officer. He greeted Mr. Chin politely and asked if this was his residence. Mr. Chin smiled gently and nodded. He stepped aside to let the officer enter, offering tea like any respectful elder would. There was no tension, no panic, only the stillness of a man who had already rehearsed this moment in his head many times. The officer opened a notebook and began asking standard questions: name, age, who lived in the house, recent visitors. Mr. Chin answered each one with clarity and calm. His hands never fidgeted. He poured tea for both of them and even added a small plate of fruit. Hospitality was his shield, routine his best disguise. When asked if he noticed anything strange around the village recently, Mr. Chin paused. He sipped his tea, looked up at the trees swaying outside, and said no strangers, no noise, nothing suspicious. The way he said it, even the wind seemed to agree. The officer jotted it down without suspicion. But inside Mr. Chin's chest, a quiet rhythm was forming. He knew what he was doing. This wasn't his first time hiding something important. His words were measured, rehearsed. Even his silence held purpose. He had learned that truth could be shaped if spoken slowly, and with just the right face. The officer stood up and said, "Sir, we'd like you to come with us to the station." Mr. Chin didn't flinch. He gave a polite nod and calmly grabbed his coat. There was no surprise in his eyes, almost as if he'd been expecting it. He locked his gate, walked out with the officers, and didn't say a word. Behind him, the garden remained quiet, as if holding its breath. At the station, Mr. Chin sat across from two officers in a plain room. One officer turned on a recorder and began asking routine questions again. Mr. Chin's answers were the same as before: steady, deliberate, unemotional. He never raised his voice, never looked away. He was not just defending himself, he was managing the room. Every pause, every breath calculated. Then came a new question. "Do you know a man named Than?" the officer asked. Mr. Chin's fingers twitched, barely noticeable. He took a sip of water, bought a few seconds, and answered, "Many people pass through this village. I don't remember all the names." But his pause had already said too much. The officer leaned forward, sensing the crack. "You met him before, right? Or someone close to him?" Mr. Chin adjusted his collar, looked down briefly, then met the officer's eyes. "I meet many people, but I don't involve myself in their problems." His voice was steady, but his pulse was not. The questions were getting closer to the center. Before Mr. Chin could leave, an officer stopped him. "We have one more thing," he said, leading Mr. Chin to a different room. Inside was a man with his face partly bruised, eyes cold and flinching. Mr. Chin paused at the door. "You know him, don't you?" the officer asked. Mr. Chin remained silent, but his clenched fists spoke louder than words. He stepped in, knowing this confrontation could shatter everything. The man in the chair stared straight at Mr. Chin, a crooked smile forming. So, we meet again, the man said, his voice laced with mockery. Mr. Chin stayed quiet, but his jaw tightened. You thought you buried me, didn't you? The officer interrupted. Enough. Tell us how you two are connected. Mr. Chin turned to the officer and said, this man destroyed everything I once built. But that's not the full story. Years ago, we ran gold together. He cheated not just me, but everyone, Mr. Chin said coldly. He left bodies behind. People lost homes, families. And I took the blame to protect others. The man laughed. And now you play the victim. Tension filled the room like fog. No one moved. The air was thick with unfinished business. The officer pushed forward a folder. In it were documents, photos, signatures, evidence tied to both men. We want the truth, said the officer. Either you both talk, or you both go down. Mr. Chin closed his eyes for a long second. When he opened them, something had shifted. He looked at the man and said, you're not dragging me down again. The man grinned. It's too late for that. I have nothing left to lose, but you do. He turned to the officer. Ask him where the girl is. The one he's hiding. Mr. Chin's eyes flashed with rage. You're playing a dirty game, he muttered, but the damage was done. The officer's attention had shifted completely. Suddenly, everything felt fragile. A name unspoken, a life endangered. Mr. Chin knew one slip could ruin more than his own future. He adjusted in his seat, voice suddenly calm. You're mistaking me for someone I used to be, but the glint in his eye said otherwise. The line between guilt and innocence had blurred. Mr. Chin sat in the hard wooden chair, eyes fixed on nothing. 1,000 memories swirled behind that silence. He had buried so many truths that he no longer knew which lies had taken root. His hands trembled slightly, though he kept them beneath the table. He wasn't just afraid of prison. He was afraid of being truly seen, of having every mask ripped away. He remembered her, the girl with the big eyes who trusted too easily, the one he swore to protect, then chose to abandon. It wasn't meant to be like this, but fate didn't ask. And now that girl might pay for his choices. The thought made his stomach turn. What if they found her? What would she think of him? Would she remember the way he once made her laugh, or only the silence he left behind? Mr. Chin closed his eyes and saw her as a child. He saw her running in the fields. He saw himself standing far away, watching, never daring to step close again. He had always told himself it was for her safety, that staying away meant protecting her. But now, he wasn't sure anymore. Was it fear, cowardice, or the burden of too many sins? The truth gnawed at his spine like a rat in a cage. The officer's voice snapped him back. You're hiding something. We see it. Mr. Chin gave a weary smile. Of course I am, he thought. I've been hiding my whole life. Behind money, behind crime, behind silence. But now there was nowhere left to hide. He looked at the man across from him, the betrayer, the man without conscience, but with power in his words. One slip from Mr. Chin, and that man would burn everything down. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here to finish what they started. Mr. Chin had to play smart. The pressure mounted in his chest. Should he lie? Should he confess? If he told the truth, would it destroy her too? Could he carry one more scar, one more loss? He wasn't a man made for love. But regret that, he knew too well. For years, he controlled every room he walked into. Men feared him, but this room was different. Here, truth was the currency, and he was bankrupt. He looked down at his hands. Once used for survival, now shaking for redemption. What would she do if she knew? Would she run, hate him? Or worse, would she look at him with pity? He couldn't bear that. He would rather be hated than pitied. Even monsters don't want to be looked at as broken. There was one truth he never spoke. She wasn't just a girl he knew. She was the last good thing he ever touched. And he'd let her go. Now, she might be in danger again because of him. He clenched his fists tighter. One wrong word, and it would all unravel. But what if he told the truth? Maybe this was his only way to make it right. He'd lost everything, money, power, name, but maybe he could still save her, even if it meant sacrificing himself. The thought made him sit taller. For the first time in years, Mr. Chin felt almost human. He opened his mouth. The room seemed to still, and as his voice prepared to betray every lie he'd lived, He whispered inside, "This is for her. Whatever happens next, at least the truth will be mine to give." Just as Mr. Chin opened his mouth to confess, the door behind him creaked open. A new officer entered and handed a file to the investigator. Inside were photos, recent ones, of Dieu Han, of her son Tom, taken from afar, like someone had been watching. Mr. Chin froze. Someone else was moving behind the scenes. The photos weren't from police surveillance. They were from someone with a zoom lens and bad intentions. Mr. Chin's breath shortened. He wasn't the only one with secrets. And worse, he wasn't the only one watching Dieu Han. Whoever had these photos, they were close. Close. The officer glanced at Mr. Chin, confused. Is there someone else involved? Mr. Chin hesitated. This changed everything. If he told the truth now, he might put her in more danger. But if he stayed silent, the shadow in the dark would keep getting closer. His hands gripped the table again. He was out of time. Instead of answering, Mr. Chin gave a name, a single word, one that made the investigator's eyes widen, one that linked the past, the betrayal, and the danger now circling Dieu Han. The name had not been heard in years, and yet it explained everything. The file closed. The room fell silent, and a new order was issued. Officers left in a hurry. Mr. Chin sat back, drained. He didn't save her yet, but he bought her time. Outside, the night grew heavier. Somewhere, someone would soon realize they'd been exposed. And then, they would come. The game had changed, but the danger was just beginning. What was the name, Mr. Chin whispered. What secret has been buried for years? And why is Dieu Han in more danger than ever? To find out what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Dieu Han RV, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in this emotional storm. A truth has been released, but will it come too late?